Hey guys, it's Imperial Silver here today. So today we're going to talk about how to identify your coins. And I'm going to try and make this as wide as possible, as many coins as possible. It's a common thing in the community where we kind of struggle maybe to identify what our coins are. There's just so many out there. But yeah, we'll just jump right into it. The first thing that you're going to want to look for is words on a coin. And this is going to decide really quickly what it is. So here we can see 5 cents. You know, this, we have like some Latin on the edges here. You can probably see like George there, and you're kind of not really understanding what Rex means. And you're like, oh, East Africa, 1952. So that's pretty easy to identify. You search it up, you're gonna pop up with this coin, right? That's not gonna be for a lot of English coins. That's what you're gonna be able to do. Canada, same with this one. This will pop up just like that. You know, you'll type this in Canada, the date, and then the amount, and it'll pop up on various sites like Numista, maybe even NGC. And that's like the first way to do it, and that's the strongest way. But if we kind of go back to this for a second, you'll realize that some coins have a little bit of Latin or something on them or something. So sometimes you have lettering. British crowns are a pretty good example. That we have Victoria. We don't really have much writing on this coin. We have a year. We could write Victoria, which might work. Maybe write Victoria coin or something. But then you have these. And this is kind of just like figuring out like the bit of the letters here can kind of help. This is just like Latin. So that can help a little bit. It's a pretty light one, but it gets to be a bit more important when you're dealing with stuff like probably like this or something, right? Like you don't really know what these are, right? There's not much here that you can really pull from, so that's kind of the tricky part there. You can also get coins like this though that are like fairly reasonable to do. Newfoundland 50 cents. Like it's a pretty oddball coin in a certain sense, but it's easy to identify just because it's got English words. The next thing is to identify the metal it is. Is it like copper? Is it like a nickel kind of? Is it a aluminum? Is it a silver? Is it like a gold? These are things. Coppers, they're going to be brown. Not really too much else to that. They're going to have kind of a brownish tone to them, goldish brown. Nickel kind of can be hard to tell sometimes from silver, but silver tends to have more of like a toning. I'm going to take a pretty heavily toned coin here. Like they'll have a bit more of like a toning than per se nickels tend to get. Oops, that's pretty bad. The nickels tend to get, right? So that's something to keep in mind. It's like nickel's kind of an oddball one, but nickel also has a different sound. You can kind of hear that different like ring to it, and this is like a lower percentage too. So, but that's one way to do it. Aluminum's gonna feel like it's almost fake, like it's so light that it's like crazy. I guess you could have steel coins too, because there's like steel cents out there. It's actually a pretty nice one. Not bad. I'll almost do that myself. So there's that. And then you have silver, which kind of has this tonish kind of color here. The percentage will kind of usually depend on how hardly toned it gets too. Like a higher percentage doesn't tend to get like as like a brownie of a tone. And then that goes all the way up to like, yeah. And then you have gold, but gold is pretty distinct. It's going to be shiny. It's not going to really have much toning unless it's like really beat up. The other thing that I'll always say when you're trying to identify a coin is keep your expectations real. There is a lot of fakes out there. You might have a fake. If it is a coin that is like $20,000 and you just got in with like a bunch of pennies, or you found it on the ground, there's a decent chance it's not it. Don't get your hopes up super fast. So that's something you have to keep in mind. The next thing you could do is you can kind of Google search stuff. So for this coin, for example, if I had to ask you what this coin was and you didn't know, because this coin is a little hard to tell, you can't read it. It has a year, but there's not much else to go off. You have like some words on here. It's in some other language than English, though. You're kind of confused. You could try and just search up the image. So for this one, you can actually find this coin pretty easily if you search two-headed eagle coin, two-headed eagle with crown coin. Like that'll pop up. What it is Russian ruble. So another way you could identify this is you can just take a picture with some apps. There's some apps out there that identify language. and it'll just take the letters here or on this side, and it'll tell you what it is, and that'll definitely send you down the right path. Also, keep an eye out for rims, because there is info on a lot of rims. I know in modern day there isn't too many countries that keep info on their rims, but a lot of older countries tended to do that. I don't really know why we don't do it anymore, but probably just cheaper. So yeah, that's like one way you can do it. The next thing I would say is you can kind of post online, looking for help. That's obviously going to be something. Because there's going to be coins that are a little difficult. Like this coin is probably going to be hard to find. This is a pretty beat up coin. It's a 40 over 80 Rias from Brazil. That's like the 40 there. So this was counter stamped. It's not too bad on this side if you know the Brazilian coat of arms, but if you don't, this could be like a real needle and haystack. Lettering is almost all worn. Most of the imagery is gone on the one side. And yeah, it's just not the easiest coin to identify. So you might have to get help for something like this. You might be able to figure out, like, I usually say like the most defining feature. So I'd try to say like a 4 with a coffee bean 0 or something coin. That might give you the right access route or something. At least to the right country, you might see something very similar. Like you might see this kind of design on something else similar from that country. Sometimes that's something to look out for. But this also gets harder based on your area because, for the most part, European coins tend to be like a little bit easier. But the farther away you kind of get from your native tongue, the harder it is going to be for you to identify language. So, I got 3 coins here. And these are going to be the hard ones that are hard to identify because there's no numbers on these that I can read. I don't speak the languages of any of these, and they're just hard to identify. So, for example, this I would have to kind of just like search square coin. I might be able to find it with like Asian markings. Knowing roughly what languages look like can help. Like knowing the difference between like Thai and Japanese, and like maybe Japanese and like Chinese, and like lightly knowing what those languages look like, at least on paper. Maybe not even being able to like write them yourself, but just being able to like, figure out what they are. Like even the Middle East is pretty bad for that too. Where they don't do the numbers on the coins really. So these are pretty hard to identify also. And these are ones, I find these coins also don't get as much, internet searches and stuff. So it's harder to just search like eagle with 3-starred shield in the middle or something. I don't know if they pulled it up or not. I just find they tend to be a little harder to find. There's coins that have like almost nothing going on them, like this one. And, that's going to be hard. Like this is writing technically, I think on this side. I think this is supposed to be writing if I'm not mistaken. But that's like hard. Like if you don't know what this coin is very weird. To be honest, it has a lot of similarities with like more ancient coins. I remember when I first got it, I thought it was an ancient coin and not what it was. And I'll let you take a guess. Like, what do you think these 3 countries are just off the top of your head? Write down in the comments really quick if what you kind of think. This one, 1, 2, and 3. These 2 come from the same country. So I've shown a couple of these before. And I told you this was from the Middle East, but they're all from Asia. So I find Asia tends to be the hardest unless you speak Asian language, and then it might not be as hard for you. But yeah, so this one's Syria. This is a princely kingdom from India, like in the 1800s, and then these are Japanese coins. So that's another thing that can be pretty tricky, like when you really have very, very little data to go on. This also is the case with ancients. Now, the thing is with these and those, you aren't going to really find these quite as much randomly. You could find some Asian coins in like modern circulation, but they're going to look pretty modern. They're going to be a little bit easier to identify. But like ancients are going to be pretty hard to identify on average if you don't know what you're doing. You can roughly tell what like a Roman coin is fairly easy if you know what you're doing. But if you're like new to this is going to be very hard for you. You're going to look for kind of like this more, I don't know what you want to call this rim. Like it's kind of like, it's not a nice rim, I guess what you would say. It's kind of like a crude rim. They don't tend to make really nice rims. They have kind of like almost a randomness to them. But they can have really nice portraits and they can look pretty. They can have wording, but the wording tends to be not really legible because it tends to be in Latin and most people don't speak Latin. So if you don't know what you're doing, that's not going to help you much. But that's kind of how you would usually identify it. Usually with ancients, you're going to need to do a lot more research. Wild Winds is where I'd usually go for that. More than Numista, but it's going to be hard. You need to know a lot more about it. That's going to be definitely more like a Google search with like some words. But like this one, for example, you really no idea what this is, right? Like if you don't know what this is, you don't know what this is. There's not much to go on here. But if you know what it is, it's pretty easy. This is from Pontus. It's this is supposed to be a gorgon on a shield, like a protection kind of symbol here. I really like this coin, actually. I think it's really nice on that side. And then it's supposed to be like Nike. This is basically just like a Greek coin with that kind of edge again. This one's actually a pretty nice edge. But yeah, like this is really hard to identify. So these are some of the coins where I would say maybe like posting online might be your way to help, because there's going to be people out there that are way more knowledgeable. Other things you can do is, you can take it to a coin shop, though. Depending on how odd of a coin it is, they might not be able to help, because some coin shops might only do like American coins, right? And if they're doing American coins, they're not gonna know what this coin is, or like an ancient coin. Like that's just not their specialty. You're gonna have to go to somebody that knows what they're talking about. There's also coin ID books out there. I'm not a huge fan of them. Like they're not bad. I think for ancients they can be pretty good. Like they'll help you identify these. But the problem is you need to know where these are from, and you need to already know stuff. And if you already know some stuff, you're gonna have a rough idea what these coins both are right off the get-go. So that's why they're not super useful. In my opinion, they're more if you're like really getting into like the rarities and you're really already in the hobby, so you're not really worried about that. You can already know what you're doing. But yeah, so that's kind of my main advice, is mostly just like, do your research. Really look for like wording on coins. That's like the biggest thing you can do. Like just read it. The first thing that'll identify like probably most coins. And even if you don't speak the language, like if you don't speak German, if you type this into Google, this will probably pop up, right? This will probably pop up. I think this will no matter what, actually. So that's like a good example. Like that's gonna pop up. You can also identify the metal. Is it like a copper? Is it like nickel? These are things that'll help a little bit. They're not gonna be like huge. They're not gonna like completely help you, but they can help. You can say, instead of saying like eagle coin, you can say copper eagle or something. It'll help a little bit. Looking through images on Google can be pretty good. Describing like the general like layout of the coin. That's pretty useful. You can always post online for Facebook and stuff for some of these harder coins if you don't really speak the language. You'll always be able to find somebody that at least send you in the right direction. They'll be able to say, oh, this is like probably from India. It's some like Indian script, or maybe this is like Japanese, but I don't know what. You'll at least get that if you post on like Facebook, Reddit, some other type of forum you have. You can always take it to a coin shop. Like I said, depends on your coin shop. Because some are going to be able to identify this quickly, and then some will not know what they're looking at, because there's thousands of coins out there, especially if you're getting into ancients. So that's something to keep in mind, right? And then, that's pretty much what I would say, is just take your time, don't rush, don't get your hopes up. If you have a coin that you think is hundreds and hundreds of dollars for some reason or another, just take your time, look through, do your research. Don't get your hopes up till you have like conclusive, fairly evidence. Even if you think it is 100%, it's very likely you're just going to find a coin worth hundreds of dollars without any knowledge on it. If this is like your first time, if you have some knowledge on how to identify them, you might be onto it. So that's what I'm saying. But yeah, that's basically it, guys. That's how to identify your coins. Leave in the comments if you have any other ways to identify coins. These are my main ways. I guess if you have a friend, you could always ask them. That's not much different than like a coin shop. But yeah, leave in the comments, because I don't have any other methods for identifying coins. But what I've done basically is to divide 99% of my coins. I think I've only been unable to identify like 2 or 3 like this one, funny enough. And yeah, if you watch the end, subscribe, smash that like button. I'd really appreciate it. We're almost at 300, and we're trying to get up there to 1,000. I have something kind of special planned for 1,000, so when we get there, it'll be great. And until next time, guys, keep collecting.